Good evening and welcome to our live national Organize to Win call. I'm Amanda Nichols with Our Revolution, and tonight we have a great call for everyone. It's good to see so many folks tuning in to Organize with Our Revolution and U.S. Rep. Ilhan Omar around abortion rights, student debt, and so much more. Definitely stay tuned tonight for New York State Senate candidate Sarah Blas and Democracy Initiative's Charly Carter on what can be done about the filibuster, elections, and more to save our democracy. We need leaders who are willing to fight to actually enact the bold solutions to meet this moment of converging crises. The far right Supreme Court is dismantling our rights, even making it so the EPA can't address climate emissions, all while deadly wildfires and 100-degree temperatures are ravaging the planet. It's insane. So this is a time to galvanize our movement, build our coalitions, and turn our frustration into action. That's why we're gathered here this evening to do this work, organizing our collective power against the far right corporate forces that are blocking and reversing progress on so many fronts. If you're ready to help fight back, we hope you'll get engaged with Our Revolution, take part in some of the action opportunities we'll be laying out on tonight's call. If you're in Zoom, you can kick things off by telling us your name and where you're from in the chat. Also in the chat, you'll see links to share this live stream out to your Facebook and Twitter. Help build this call and get as many folks tuning in as possible. All right, let's see who we have joining in Zoom right now. Make sure to tell us your name, where you're tuning in from, what state you're in, and what you're excited to hear about on tonight's call. So we have Hal in Maryland, and we have Diane in Ohio. We also have Paco in DC. Whole lot of folks who are excited to get this call underway tonight. So for those who are watching live on social media, please transfer into Zoom with us. We're dropping the link to join our social media, or to join Zoom, but we're dropping that link in the social media streams. Right now, go to ourrev.us/Zoom. Again, my name is Amanda Nichols, and you're tuning in to our live national organizing call to build progressive power. U.S. Rep. Ilhan Omar will be here to talk about abortion rights, student debt cancellation, and next steps for the progressive movement. We'll also hear from Sarah Blas on her run for state senate in New York's District 23. And then Charly Carter of Democracy Initiative will be here to talk about elections, filibuster fixes, and more to restore our democracy. I'm seeing some more folks tuning in here in the chat. So welcome to you all. Definitely keep typing where you're from and what you're looking forward to on tonight's broadcast. One way to make a huge impact from anywhere in the country is by signing up for a shift with Our Revolution's phone bank force. You can click the link in the chat right now to sign up to call folks and mobilize them into action around our policy issue campaigns and to vote for progressives who are up against corporate politicians up and down the ballot in these critical primary races. So far, Our Revolution members have made more than 500,000 phone calls in just the past couple months. And we're counting on, our grassroots army to really stand up and fight back against the big money interests that are trying to dominate these races. So please sign up to volunteer to make a few calls at the link that we're dropping in the chat right now. So as you guys know, we're fighting against the far right, corporate elites. We're trying to elect our allies at all levels of government. We're fighting for progressive solutions that we need in this moment. And ultimately, we're working to change the face of politics in America. We've made some progress, but we have a long way to go. So hopefully you'll take a moment right now while the call is still building. We have a few minutes here to become a member of Our Revolution. We're going to drop that link in. It's ourrev.us/2022 member. And if you're on the phones, press *3 and an operator will help you sign up really quickly. We have over 3,000 people listening in on the phones right now. And before we get started, we'd love for you all to take this chance, hop over to Zoom, so you can participate directly in tonight's organizing. That's ourrev.us/Zoom. And let's see, we've got Afrin from Astoria, New York. We've got Molly Montes, a member of OR. Oh, it's moving so fast. In Columbia, South Carolina, we have Steve Renfrank in Evanston, Illinois. We've got Joy from DC. We've got Carol from St. Paul. We've got Deb Robinson in Vermont. We're hitting all the states tonight. Everybody's tuning in. Catherine from Tucson, Arizona. Hi, Catherine. Dan Gogwin, Beth Angel, John Nelson from Redondo Beach, California, David from Pittsburgh. And with that, let me bring in our host for the evening. Without further ado, we've got our Revolution Campaigns and Communications Director, Paco Fabian. Paco, over to you.
Thank you, Amanda, very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our live Monday night Organized to Win broadcast. My name is Paco Fabian. I'm the Campaigns and Communications Director here at Our Revolution, and I'll be your host this evening. I'm super excited to have you here with us tonight. We're living through some pretty challenging times right now. The far-right Supreme Court is dismantling our rights. We're witnessing the horrors of gun violence, of police brutality, of climate chaos, and economic despair. But we're here to see what we can do about it, right? Democrats hold the House, the Senate, the White House, but we're not seeing a lot of action coming out of them to meet the moment we're in. So, you know, folks, our folks, you, me, we all need to see our government working for us if we hope to restore our democracy and stave off a red wave in November and beyond. And that's why we're here tonight, right? To figure out what we can do about it. So in just a little bit, we're gonna hear from US Representative Ilhan Omar, who's gonna join us to discuss actions Democrats can take right now to fight for abortion rights and rein in the right-wing court that has gone rogue. Things like term limits for Supreme Court justices, expanding the court, and ending the filibuster. We're also going to hear about that from another guest of ours, Charly Carter. Representative Omar is also going to dig into the next steps on student debt and how we might be able to address that, especially you know, for folks that are really struggling with that, and also how we're going to grow our movement right in this moment. We're going to hear from Blas, who's going to tell us about her run for state senate in New York's District 23, Senate District 23. And then, as I mentioned, we'll hear from Charly Carter of the Democracy Initiative on how we can strengthen our democracy by delivering and removing obstacles to progress, things like the filibuster and other things, right? And speaking of obstacles, Bernie went on live TV last week and called out corrupt coal baron Joe Manchin directly for sabotaging the Democratic agenda. Not once, not twice. I don't know, this is probably the fifth time he's done it. This time he's, this time he knocked out a pared down version that had some modest climate investments, some reduction to prescription drug costs, some things related to ending childhood poverty. We can't afford to continue, continued weakness from the Democratic leadership on these issues, right? We can't keep pretending that Manchin is negotiating in good faith. It's like Lucy with a football, if you guys remember our favorite cartoons when I was younger, at least. We can't pretend that he's representing the people of West Virginia either. All those things I mentioned, addressing climate crisis, reducing childhood poverty, all those things are critical to West Virginians, but apparently not critical to the representative in the Senate. So party leaders would be wise to follow Bernie's lead here and stand up to obstructionists like Joe Manchin so that they can do what's necessary to actually deliver for people ahead of November, especially ahead of November, because fascism is going to be on the ballot then and, of course, in 2024 as well. So Democratic voters are growing increasingly frustrated by the complicity and complacency of corporate Democrats. It shows exactly why we're growing a progressive movement and why we're all here tonight. So Bernie founded Our Revolution nearly 6 years ago with a mission to empower working people, beat back corporate domination, and advance our democracy. And today, I'm proud to say that we're one of the largest grassroots-funded progressive political action organizations in America, and we're excited to see so many of you on this call tonight, listening on the phones, here in the Zoom, watching online on Facebook, Twitter, and other places. So we hope folks that are not in Zoom can switch over to Zoom. It's a much more interactive experience here. We're chatting with you all the time. You can drop emojis. I see a bunch of little hearts floating around everywhere. It's great to see. So you can join us by going to rf.us/Zoom, and you can join us here in the chat. That's not the only way you can interact with us, right? One of the things that President Biden could do right now to help move the Democratic agenda forward is declare an official climate emergency, giving the administration more power to enact steps that'll shift our country to a more renewable energy future. And there's really no time to waste. I mean, we've seen it. There were a week ago, 2 weeks ago, there were fires in Alaska. I mean, the craziness is happening. Europe was melting. I mean, I'm in Washington, D.C. right now, and it's so hot. It hasn't been this hot in quite a while. So there's really no time to waste. And if we fail to act now, future generations are really going to, pay the consequences, but also blame us, right? And hold us accountable for what's going on. So you can fill out our survey. It's being dropped in the chat right now. And tell us what you think, right? Do you think that we need an extra yacht and another Maserati for Joe Manchin, or do you think we need to actually address the climate crisis, right? So fill out the survey. It's getting dropped in the chat. Another thing we're doing is we're not just going after folks like Manchin, right? There's other leaders in the Senate that also need to step it up. And our revolution is standing with more than a dozen congressional progressive caucus leaders, including tonight's guest, Ilhan Omar, and calling on Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to bring key antitrust bills to a vote as soon as possible. So the American Innovation and Choice Online Act and the Open Markets Act would enable fair competition on big tech platforms and ban the self-dealing where they're just making themselves richer and richer by pretending that they're giving other folks the ability to compete fairly in their marketplaces. So the sooner the Senate votes, the better. Put it on the floor, and they're suddenly undecided voters, folks like Senator Ossoff in Georgia, to vote it down. There are even some Republicans that are ready to vote for something like this, so it should be a doable thing. So join us. Call Chuck Schumer. The link is getting dropped in the chat right now, and that link is a new mode link, so you put in your phone number, it calls you and connects you directly to Chuck Schumer's office, and let him know that we need to bring these critical antitrust bills to the floor for a vote as soon as possible. So with that, let me introduce and officially kick off our meeting tonight. So I'm super excited to introduce our next guest, our first guest of the night, and that is Representative Ilhan Omar, who we are also very proud to endorse for re-election in Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. Ilhan is the whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and on Tuesday, she was among 17 different members of Congress, including Andy Levin, also from Michigan, the only male, by the way, that was there, that was arrested outside of the Supreme Court protesting for women's right to choose. She also wrote an op-ed in The Nation this week, laying out actions to rein in the right-wing court that has gone rogue, and we want to hear a little bit more about that from her here tonight. So Representative Omar, if you're out there, can you hear me? Is that a no? I don't think she's on yet. I thought I saw her earlier, but no matter, we can move on to our next guest, and we'll bring on Representative Omar when she joins us. So our second guest, who I know is on because I promoted her to a panelist just a little bit ago, is Sarah Blas. So Sarah, I'm super excited to invite you to participate on our call. If you're available, can you say yes if you are?
Yes, hello.
All right, great. So it's my pleasure to introduce you. And also to announce that we are super excited to endorse you in your race for the New York State Senate in District 23. So last year, Sarah was elected to the Community Education Council in District 31, and now she's running for Senate, State Senate, to carry on her fight for digital equity, education, housing, healthcare, LGBTQ rights, and more. So as a mother of 6, 4 of whom have independent education programs, Sarah is a steadfast advocate for families with special needs. And when COVID hit, Sarah stepped up as an organizer, delivering 1,000 Wi-Fi-enabled devices for families struggling with distance learning, with online employment, and with being able to pay for their services online. And she that earned her the Staten Island Woman of Achievement Award. So Sarah, welcome to our call tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, we're super excited. So tell us a little bit about your run for State Senate. If I'm not mistaken, your district covers the northern part of Staten Island, where my mom was born, actually, and then some parts of Brooklyn, right?
That's correct. Well, with those district lines changing, we don't know what they'll look like tomorrow. But for right now, that you're correct. The North Shore of Staten Island is a part of District 23, and also Coney Island, Brighton Beach, a very small piece of Bay Ridge. So both sides of those bridge. That's correct.
Great. So tell us a little bit about why you're running for State Senate and how the race is shaping up.
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, the current state senator, Diane Savino, is retiring. So it is an open seat, and really, really excited because I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And about 18 years ago, like hundreds of families in New York, hundreds of hardworking families, my family experienced homelessness right here in New York City. And that is why we actually moved to Staten Island. So this opportunity to take my community organizing, work to the next level and really infuse lived experience into legislation that doesn't often get to happen in the state Senate seat is really why I am running. You mentioned that I was a mother of 6, which is really behind a lot of the advocacy I do with the Department of Education, especially advocating for parents and caregivers that have children with special needs. But I'm also a current NYCHA resident, and when elected, I would be the first NYCHA resident to ever hold a state Senate seat in the history of New York City. And that's important.
For folks that aren't from New York, can you explain what NYCHA is?
Yeah, absolutely, Paco. Thank you. So NYCHA is New York City Housing Authority, and it is typically we talk about NYCHA whenever it's in the headlines for horrific living conditions. It's home to over 900,000 New Yorkers, hardworking families that often face horrible, inhumane living conditions. And so what's important about being a NYCHA resident running for state Senate is where that legislation, all those decisions are made about funding, where they're made about policies that impact a very, very large group of folks that really experience unnecessary health disparities because of those living conditions.
Yeah, and so what other issues are you think are going to be important to your district? I mean, I think housing's a big one. I think all across the country, right? It's becoming less and less affordable, but especially in New York, right? But what other issues do you think are going to be part of this race?
Accessibility is another one of my platforms. I am a disabled New Yorker. As you mentioned, many of my children have special needs. And when we talk about accessibility, we don't just mean in our campaign, we mean fighting for legislation within the community to really support our built environment, access to green spaces, walkability and bikeability in our communities, building healthy infrastructure so folks with disabilities, disabled families, also senior citizens actually have access to, the communities that we all want to see. So accessibility is another key thing. Education, as you mentioned, I'm the current second vice president of the Community Education Council for the entire District of 31. And really the fight to fully fund public schools, to promote legislation for community schools, connecting CBOs to public schools, and really making sure that Title I schools, especially in neighborhoods, communities of color that are really, really struggling with all types of, issues, are fully funded and have the resources that they need to really succeed.
So now turning to the campaign itself, right? What kind of opposition are you facing in this race? And how can the progressive movement, the folks that are on the phone now and many others, rise up to help you over the finish line on August 23rd, right? Which
Yep,
is
that's
the
right.
second New York primary this year, right?
That's right. So first and foremost, a lot of folks don't know there's a second primary. So anyone who can volunteer to get on our regularly scheduled phone banking just to let, registered folks know that there is a second primary, that when elected, I would not only be the first NYCHA resident to hold a state Senate seat, but the first African-American woman to hold a state Senate seat in this district, the first woman with a disability to hold a state Senate seat in this district, and really let folks know that our lived experience matters, that it's time that we say no to elected officials that are really fundraising from corporations, that we deserve an elected official that has a history and a track record of being a community organizer, of really making an impact, of showing up when other folks are really just too scared and too afraid to show up where it counts. And that type of thing, those types of calls really connect with voters and make people believe in the civic process again. So we do have 4 other folks who are running in this race. It is a very competitive race. I'm the most progressive. I am the grassroots candidate. So it's all about galvanizing that grassroots progressive support to push us over the finish line.
Great. Well, we're right there with you, and we'll be helping out as much as we can from now until August 23rd, making sure folks know that this is the second primary happening in New York, and more importantly, we're also going to work to see if we can make the election process in New York a lot more fair for everybody. So super excited. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us tonight. And before we switch over to our next guest, I just want to also announce our endorsement of Senator Gustavo Rivera. He has been a great progressive ally in this time and in his time in office so far. Most importantly, he's the chair of the Senate Health Committee in New York. He led the fight to craft and introduce the New York Health Act, which would create a system of universal single-payer healthcare in the state. And so we're also very excited to announce his endorsement. And now, let me bring on our starring guest, Representative Ilhan Omar, who I announced a little bit earlier today. We're proud to endorse for re-election in Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. Representative Omar is the whip of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And as I mentioned on Tuesday, she was among 17 progressive House members, including one Andy Levin, the only male that was there, I believe, arrested outside of the Supreme Court, protesting for women's rights. She also recently wrote an op-ed in The Nation this week, or last week, I should say, laying out actions to rein in a right-wing court that has gone rogue. So Representative Omar, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you joining us. Talk to us a little bit about the very heavy moment we're in with a rogue Supreme Court, with mass shootings, with climate chaos, the danger that our democracy is facing right now, and what are progressives prepared to do to meet this moment?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's such an honor to be able to be in community with our revolution. Thank you all again for having me. Sorry, I'm zooming in from my car. I just came from an event where in the middle of a primary. Our primary is on August 9th. And so we're out here in the community trying to, get people out excited and activated. You're right. This is a really heavy time. We are in a really dangerous moment, and we need everybody to be able to meet this moment. We have a court that is legislating from the bench. We are still dealing with a Department of Justice that hasn't fully been up to the task in prosecuting people who attempted a coup against our government. Many of us are still dealing with the repercussions of January 6th, and those who have incited and aided and abetted the insurrectionists are not. We're also, as you just mentioned, dealing with a climate crisis that is not being dealt with in the urgency that it needs. For the first time, I think, in my life here in the United States, I've been here since 1995. Many of us are looking at some of the progresses that have been made in our nation now be negated. And many of the freedoms that we thought were enshrined in our Constitution, many of the rights that we thought we had access to in our Constitution really aren't guaranteed. But I will say that there is a lot of work that is being done in the House. We obviously have a Senate where every good idea dies. But we have been able to pass legislation to codify Roe into law. We passed legislation to create permanent access to contraceptives. We protected the right for people to travel across state borders to access legal abortion. We have been fighting, as you know, in trying to address the climate crisis. And I think that people and movements are important. That is why many of us went and protested the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe, and got arrested, got in some good trouble, because I think we have to continue to keep this issue in the spotlight. It is way too important for us to have it just be something that happens, and for us to just move on from it. We have to continue to speak to the urgency of addressing legalizing abortion, protecting women's right to access their reproductive rights, women's autonomy to their bodies, to the protection of their privacy to make their own decisions. All of those things are important. But we are really scared because we don't know what this court will do if we do not have many of these rights enshrined into law. We've heard them talk about interracial marriage. We've heard them talk about gay marriage. We've heard them allude to a lot of things that are really detrimental to the kind of open society that we want to live in, the freedoms and liberties that we want to enjoy as citizens of this country. And so we just have to continue to do the work. I'm really proud of congressional staffers who protested Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's office, urging him to address the climate crisis that many of us have been talking about for way too long, without there being a single movement with it. And so I'm really proud of some of these congressional staffers who put their bodies on the line and got themselves arrested to speak to the urgency of meeting this moment, including some of my staffers in our congressional office.
And so, Representative Omar, what are some things that are sort of keeping you, before you jumped on, we talked a little bit about, as you mentioned, the Supreme Court, our rights being, legislated away from the bench, right, from the Supreme Court, the climate crisis, mass shootings, police brutality. What are some of the issues, or what are some of the things that are keeping you inspired to keep going now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. We obviously saw a movement towards addressing mass shootings with the domestic terrorism legislation that we were able to create. Cori Bush and myself worked with the Congressional Black Caucus and the Progressive Caucus to create some guardrails, because we know some of these pieces of legislation, when they pass in addressing one problem, they oftentimes end up impacting the most vulnerable in our communities, because these pieces of legislation are often created without thought of us, even though they will end up impacting us. And so we wanted to make sure that there were guardrails for that legislation, so they weren't going to be used, 10 years, 20 years from now against us. We also saw a movement in the passage of the bipartisan gun legislation that curbs some of the gun violence that we are experiencing, whether it's communal violence, with some of the gun trafficking elements of that legislation, or some of the resources around addressing trauma and mental health, substance abuse. I think those are going to go a long way in that. I'm also inspired that, for the first time, we are able to pass these pieces of legislation that codifies a lot of, again, these liberties and freedoms that we thought that we had, that we are now learning that the court is planning on legislating from the bench, and that's really important to have been able to push the House to be able to do that. It's also inspiring to see, the congressional staffers that are unionizing, and the movement of labor that is being fueled and re-energized by young people, whether it's the young people who are organizing in Starbucks or Amazon, or some of the other retail employees that are doing that. As someone who was part of FSME for a really long time, really proud of our siblings for doing that work. We've also been actively pushing the president to do executive orders and to utilize the power of his pen. And so we've seen some protections reiterated in regards to abortion rights and abortion access with the last executive order that he was able to do. In April, we met with him in the White House and got him to say yes to canceling student debt. And, there's an announcement in the pipeline in the next week or so, hopefully early August. And so there's a lot of things to be excited about. I know that that's not enough for many of us who have been fighting for a more just society, but it's a good start and something for us to build on. I know people are tired of being asked to vote, but we need the right people in the right offices in order for the right pieces of legislation to pass. A friend of mine says, who's a member of Congress, always says, right, policies that are harmful to us were legislated, and it is possible for us to legislate policies that are not harmful and roll back some of the harm that our communities have been done to. And I believe that we are close to that. People are recognizing and understanding that this is not the time to sit around. This is a time to act, and every single person should be expected, once they are elected, to meet the moment and fulfill the promises that they make to their constituency.
So here at our Revolution, that's part of what we do, right? Try to get more folks that are aligned with you on some of these issues to get them in Congress, to get them going, and we're working on getting more folks up there that can help push Democrats, push leadership, and push the whole Congress in that direction.
Yeah. And we really do appreciate that, because as you are seeing in these primaries in the last few months, the people that are experiencing the hardest time in running for office right now, that are experiencing the onslaught of campaign resources going against them, the really disheartening, dangerous TV ads that are going up against progressives, is really a detriment to the progress of our country. And so there has to be a counteraction to that. and organizations like Our Revolution provide that. And so we do appreciate you all being foot soldiers and having conversations with people, because politics is personal. And once people understand what is personally at stake for them, I believe they always come out and they pick the right candidates.
That's right. As Joseph Givargis, our executive director, likes to say, right? The definition of power is organized people and organized money, right? And we're the people part of this. And we can't compete with the dollars that they throw out. So we just got to keep organizing and keep making the change. Well, Representative Omar, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, even if it's from your car. And we look forward to seeing you on one of these calls again in the near future. So thank you so much.
And no, thank you. Here in Minnesota's 5th, we say you get what you organize for.
That's
and
right.
So we definitely believe in people power. So get out there, organize your communities for the policy change that we know will create a better tomorrow for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so you heard it from Representative Omar. You know, you get what you organize for, right? As she said. So if you want to keep you know, folks like Representative Omar in Congress, if you want to help grow the Progressive Caucus, if you want to get more like-minded progressives in positions of power, then sign up for Our Revolution's phone bank force. That's one way that we reach out to voters, let them know what's happening in their areas and their districts and who we believe is the best candidate for the job at hand. So help us reach voters one-on-one, make sure they vote in their primaries for Representative Omar on her election day, which is August 9th, as well as other progressives, right? We have elections in Michigan at the beginning of August as well, and other places. So we'll be, you know, the phones will be fully activated and ready to go, so we can make sure we have our folks in Congress in 2023 and beyond. So now I'm super excited to bring on our next guest. We talked a little bit with Representative Omar on, you know, the filibuster and the Supreme Court legislating from the bench. Well, I want to bring on now Charly Carter from the Democracy Initiative. So Our Revolution is super proud to partner with Charly and this great organization, the Democracy Initiative, in these times when so many of us are exasperated and losing faith in our democracy. And not only are folks losing faith in it, but, you know, it's being attacked, right, by insurrectionists and by others. So let's welcome Charly. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Charly, tell us a little bit about the Democracy Initiative and what it does, and about the fight for democracy that we're facing in this moment.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity. The Democracy Initiative, we've been around for about 10 years. It's a coalition of 75 national organizations from every corner of the movement: labor, civil rights, environmental justice, women's rights, the faith community, who have all come together to protect our democracy and to expand. We have the vision of a democracy where every voice matters, and that the government works for all of its citizens. And Our Revolution, we're proud to say, is one of our early partners. And I want to thank the folks who are on the phone tonight and who show up time and time again, answering the call to, you know, defend our democracy and protect our rights.
So Charly, tell us a little bit about what is possible and what the path is to reforming the filibuster, right? We have the opportunity maybe to do it around gun issues now that the House has passed some gun legislation that could open up the door for other things. Can you explain to us a little bit what the path is there?
Sure. Well, you know, we're under attack, as Representative Omar said, like we've never been before. It's a well-coordinated, well-funded, and so far well-executed multi-pronged attack on our rights. And the filibuster, this arcane Senate rule that says you have to get a supermajority to even start debate, on passing policy is the gridlock that has blocked all progress in our country for years. We've made some gains on breaking down the and reforming the filibuster rule, but even now, it was the filibuster that killed the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. It is the filibuster that stands in the way of getting of cementing a right to access abortion and our privacy rights. It is preventing all of our agendas from moving forward, even as our rights are being stripped away. So we're at this point. We've seen there hadn't been a gun law passed in this country in decades. And we saw the outrage from the Uvalde shooting that bubbled up, where even Republicans who saw that if they didn't respond to the demands of voters, they wouldn't be in office again next year. And we saw them effectively 15 Republicans voted to support that gun legislation. And that lays out a pathway. I think of it as the Diagon Alley strategy. You knock on you got to know which bricks to knock on. And we have a roadmap to which bricks that we can knock on to try to get some protections, some changes to the filibuster so that we can move forward. And that's what we're asking folks to do this summer when we can't afford to turn down the heat. We have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep the pressure on Senator McConnell and the Democratic caucus, but we also have to turn up the pressure on Republicans so that, especially around abortion rights, overwhelmingly in this country, voters support a woman's right to make healthcare decisions about her own body, and the right to privacy that are also under threat from the Dobbs ruling. We need to make our voices heard on this because we see there's a crack, and we need to just keep applying pressure. Now is not the time for us to give up.
Right, and so it's not just legislation that's facing this obstacle of a filibuster, right? Elections and fair voting is also facing some obstacles, Absolutely. Especially voters. So can you tell us a little bit about the work that the DI is doing in regards to removing some of those roadblocks?
Absolutely. Well, one thing we can say is that money in politics, something our revolution is really familiar with, is at the center of the filibuster. We've seen, Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin, blocking progress and raking in big dollars at the same time. So we have to do something about money in politics. When, before or after we fix the filibuster, we got to do something about that as well. But, this is also about voting, and it is about showing up. The thing that I can say is that this strategy that our opposition has come up with is designed to discourage us. It's designed to overwhelm our resistance. It's designed to overwhelm our activists and to frustrate and discourage voters. It is another way of keeping people at home. And we have to respond by getting more people to the polls. It's going to be harder for us because the state level, they've rolled back, vote by mail, ballot boxes, and everything that made it so easy for people to participate in 2020. But we still have the ability to use absentee voters, absentee voting. And we're encouraging people to start early, to educate their communities, to actually come up with a plan, to get people signed up and requesting their absentee ballots, but most importantly, to learn about the changes that have happened in their states regarding absentee ballots. Some of them now require that they be notarized. Here's an example where, having a notary, a fair where a notary can just sign everybody's absentee ballots is one way of sort of facilitating. But it's really important that people know what the changes are to their to the laws in their state. And I invite folks to go to the democracyinitiative.org website. We have a report on there. It's the voter confidence index, and we score voter confidence in all 50 states in the District of Columbia on 10 different factors, from how difficult is it going to be to register to vote, to should you be worried about threats of violence and intimidation at the polls.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Charly, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for being with us at 8:30 on a very hot evening in Baltimore. So really appreciate it. Folks, as you can see, we have incredibly important work ahead of us. We need to make sure our democracy functions for everybody, including working people. And there are concrete actions we can take to advance this mission. We hope you'll join us as an active, sustaining member of our revolution today. You can go to the link that's getting dropped in the chat now. If you're on the phones, you can press *3, and an operator will help you out. That link is rrev.us/2022member. Help us address all these issues that you've heard about, from climate change to the filibuster, to helping workers form unions. We're working on all of these things in all kinds of different places around the country, but we can't do it if we don't have your help, your time, your treasure. Any little bit helps to get us across the finish line here. So again, that link is rrev.us/2022member. And just quickly, before we get into the rest of our activities for this week, I want to bring on one of our bonus guests tonight, our progressive radio host, Jeff Santos. He's here a little bit to talk about the relaunch, I should say, of his Jeff Santos show, which is going to kick off tomorrow. That radio show is part of the Revolution Radio Network. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us here tonight. As you know, we are big believers and big supporters of progressive media. Talk to us a little bit about the new show and what you and our Revolution Board Chair Larry Corwin are going to talk about, I think, on Wednesday when he gets
That's right. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. And we were the Revolution Radio Network before you became the Our Revolution. So we've been doing it since 2008, and we're excited to be part of the revolution altogether, and excited to be here tonight. Yeah, we're very excited. Starting tomorrow, 3 to 6 Eastern Time, 12 to 3 Pacific. We'll be talking to a number of different political folks, talking about the upcoming elections in November, talking about the concerns that were highlighted tonight, voting rights, the focus on what's happening to progressive stars like Miss Omar and others, and Nina Turner, and a whole slew of people that have been targeted by some folks on the corporate right, on the Democratic side, and of course Republicans in general. So it's a great opportunity if you're a progressive and you believe in progressive populism. I like to call myself a 21st century FDR progressive. We talk a lot about going back to the goals of FDR with the 21st century version of it. In fact, we have a couple of people on later in the week, Harvey Kay, who's a historian of FDR, and also Thomas Paine, and he and Alan Minsky of one of your great progressive allies, the Progressive Democrats of America, come up with the 21st century version of the FDR Economic Bill of Rights. So we have people like that, John Nichols, Harold Meyerson, folks, that perspective. We have great labor leaders like Larry, formerly a CWA, of course. Sarah Nelson is a contributor. So we try to bring that kind of, FDR to Bernie Sanders, who was a longtime contributor to the program going back to 2008, to the forefront. We hope you can join us tomorrow, 3 to 6. RevolutionRadioNetwork.com.
Right, and tell us a little bit about the importance of progressive and independent news and programming, right? And how our folks can support endeavors like yours, to build, a broader progressive media sphere and a broader movement as a result.
Well, one of the things that has happened, and I started out a number of years ago with investors, ended up with a Boston station, the only independent progressive talk station in Boston for probably 6 years, actually the only one in Southern New England. And what ends up happening is that when investor dollars dry up, because the profit in radio dries up, you end up having to do things on your own. So it's great sponsors, have helped me out in the past. But we're always looking, you can email me, Jeff with a J at revolutionboston.com. If you want to help, we can do it in a number of different ways. But I think it's so critical because look at how much we have to answer to the right, and think about all of the progressive, stars of the last few years on radio. The great Ed Schultz is left us, passed away. We have, a number of others still around, Tom Hartman, many others, but, they have limited platforms. So we're at a point right now where we need to have more, and there's more voices online, of course, but it is critical because we need to actually push the agenda. I mean, why are we answering to the right wing? Why are we answering to Joe Manchin? Why are we answering to that centrist Republican light kind of philosophy? And we have to push it. That's what you guys are so good at. You're bringing the issues out. I mean, I was watching Bernie on one of his town halls last night. He's bringing up these issues that, frankly, you're not going to get in mainstream media, whether it's CNN or MSNBC.
And Jeff, is your show also available as a podcast?
It is, in a sense. It's available, at Revolution Radio Network after the show. And again, we're doing, a lot of construction with the website, but we're going to basically be able to watch this show on a number of different platforms, from YouTube to LinkedIn and Twitch, as an example. We're moving in that direction with a start today that was actually postponed from tomorrow. I should say it was postponed from today. But you'll be able to listen and watch in a number of different platforms. If you go to Revolution Radio Network tomorrow, you'll be able to hit on the page where there's a photograph of me back in my days in Somerville, Massachusetts, and shout out to the folks there at their cable outlet. And you press the TV and be able to watch the Facebook feed at Jeff Santos Show. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. But yes, you can, to answer your question, Michael.
And so, Jeff, remind us again what time your show is tomorrow.
Yeah, 3 to 6 Eastern time, 12 to 3 Pacific. And we invite you to call in 833-545-JEFF. That's 833-545-5333. And you can also email me, of course, Jeff at revolutionboston.com, on Twitter and Facebook at Jeff Santos Show. I look forward to hearing from all of our friends at our Revolution. I really appreciate it tonight, Paco, and keep on fighting. And it was great to see a great fighter in Minnesota, Miss Omar, who we need back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us here tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paco. Pleasure to be here.
And all right, so thank you so much, everybody, for spending your Monday evening with us here tonight. After seeing some of the work that we've been doing, we hope you sign up and become an official Our Revolution member. You'll get a card, you'll get stickers, you can order a tote bag, you can get a t-shirt. So this is how we shift power to the working class, right? How we change politics and how we change our country and change the lives of the folks that live in it. But we need your help to do it. So if you're in the Zoom room, click on the link that's getting dropped in the chat. If you guys are on the phone, press *3 and an operator will help you sign up. And if you're just listening on the phone, you can go to rrev.us/2022 member, and you can become a member that way. Just a couple of things to go through. We have one of our best allies in Congress, Rep. Andy Levin, if we could go to the next slide, is under attack from AIPAC and a bunch of dark money and their right-wing billionaire donors in his race for re-election in Michigan's 11th Congressional District. Our folks are out there actually tonight doing some canvassing on behalf of Andy Levin. Mike Olis, who many of you know, has been sitting in this seat before. Our field director is out there, and so are a bunch of other folks. We need to outwork that big money and make sure Andy continues his leadership on Medicare for All and the Green New Deal and fighting for workers and unions and the U.S. House of Representatives. He's facing a tough challenge. So sign up to make some calls and get folks out to vote ahead of the election, which is a week from tomorrow. It's August 2nd. You can go to the link that's getting dropped in the chat there, and you can help us make sure Andy returns to Congress in 2023. You can also sign up to help elect our Revolution member, Brittany Ramos de Barros, who is running for Congress in New York 11. She will be a great addition to the Progressive Caucus and to the squad. We'll be calling thousands of our Revolution supporters in the Staten Island-based district, and we need all hands on deck for Brittany. Also in New York, we're making calls for Melanie Dorigo. She's another inspiring advocate for our progressive agenda, and we have a chance to beat the establishment in her race and send her to Congress, and we'll hope you get active and help us reach out to voters in New York's 3rd Congressional District. That link is getting dropped in the chat now. And then just lastly, our Revolution leaders are working hard inside the Democratic Party. I think we've heard from Representative Omar. We've seen what's happened over the last few months with dark money in primaries and with the leadership of the party putting their fingers on the scale, much like they did a couple years ago with the DCCC blacklist, if you guys remember that. So our members and leaders are working hard inside the party to make sure our proposals are on the table at major DNC meetings that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Things like making sure there's no dark money in Democratic primaries, making sure we keep super delegates out of the first ballot at the next Democratic National Convention, other sort of transparency reforms, right? Make sure that we know where the party's spending its money, especially because we're part of that party, right? So we need to make sure we know how the party's spending its money. So tell us what you think the Democratic Party needs to change, what things we need to address. There's a link that's getting dropped in the chat right now. Fill it out. Let us know what you think we need to make sure the Democratic Party does. Maybe it's everything. You have that option as well. So take a look, read what we're working on, and join us there. And finally, thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you for all the work you've done to support our work. Thank you for volunteering, for donating, for making phone calls, for texting, for letting us know what you think. This organization exists because of you, our members, and we hope to grow it and continue being effective. So let me close out this call tonight a little bit earlier than usual, which is nice because we all want to spend a little bit of time with our friends and family and close ones. But we do it by using our chant that we've heard all over the country in different events we've done in person before COVID, and we use it in every single one of our calls as well. And for those that are able to, you can unmute yourself and join me. When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
When we organize,
we win.
We win.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.